Hello everybody, welcome to this video. I'm gonna have a sip of water. Today we are going to be doing a game of 20 questions, basically, is what is happening. I recently saw Jack Edwards do this video where he did a book tag, which people don't seem to be doing very often anymore. People don't really do tag videos on YouTube anymore. I feel like that was a thing of the 2010s and it has gone. But I really enjoy them. I really enjoy watching them. And so I thought I would make my own. Today I will be doing the 20 questions tag. I don't know who this was created by, but it is listed on a website called ZZ with Books. And the creator, ZZ, or the creator of ZZ with Books, also says that they don't know who created this tag, but they are just listing it here. And when I saw Jack Edwards do this video, I didn't even watch the whole video. I was like, no, I cannot watch this video and let his opinions influence my answers. So I'm doing this before I watch his video, but I will link both the website where this tag is on, and I will link his video in the description below, so that you can also go and watch his video and also read the questions and maybe do this tag yourself. The first question is, how many books is too many books in a series? Now, honestly, I don't really read series anymore. I used to read series a lot more. Well, I feel like I only used to read series really as a teenager. Because it was at the time of The Hunger Games and Divergent and The Maze Runner and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children and all of those things. Oh, and The Mortal Instruments. All of those books were coming out. And I read pretty much all of them. I didn't read the Divergent series ever, because I watched the first movie and then I watched a bit of the second movie and I was like, meh, don't really care for this. So I didn't ever read the books, and I don't think I ever watched the third movie, if they even made a third movie. But The Hunger Games I did read. I read the first two books of the Mortal Instruments series, City of Bones and City of Glass. I didn't continue reading them. I read the first two books of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I really enjoyed them, and I did actually want to continue. I don't know if I still want to read them now. Maybe. I don't know. I read the first two books of the Maze Runner series, and then I started reading the third one, and I gave up because I didn't like it anymore. And I think there were 4 books in that series, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I don't really read series anymore. To be honest, if I see that a book is part of a series, I'm less inclined to want to read it, because I feel like then I will have to read the whole series, and I don't want to commit to reading an entire series of books. So honestly, if I were to read a series, I would honestly just prefer a duology, so 2 books, maybe 3. So how many books is too many books in series? Anything more than 3, to be honest. Even 3 is pushing it for me. But yes, continuing on. How do you feel about cliffhangers? I don't like them. That's my short answer, is I don't like them. But I feel like people often get confused between cliffhangers and ambiguous endings of books. And ambiguous endings I can deal with. I don't always like them, but I can appreciate them. And sometimes I really do enjoy when a book ends with an open ending or an ambiguous ending. Cliffhangers for me is when kind of what happens in a series, to be honest, because a cliffhanger I feel like is made to have something major, like a major plot point or plot twist or something, happen at the end of the book that then makes you want to read the next book. So I feel like cliffhangers only really occur in series. I might be wrong, but I don't really like cliffhangers. But an ambiguous ending or an open-ended book I can appreciate. As I said, I don't always enjoy the ambiguous endings, although when I write, I do write quite ambiguous endings to my stories as well, but it's with a purpose. Question number 3 is hardback or paperback? The only correct answer is paperback. I'm sorry to all of you hardback lovers. I cannot. I have a couple of hardbacks on my bookshelf, but mostly I have paperbacks, and I prefer them that way because hardbacks, first of all, are really hard to keep open, especially if you're like me and you like to read with one hand only. Then by the time I've read 2 pages, my pinky finger is in pain because it has been working so hard at trying to keep the book open. And hardbacks are also usually heavier, and I don't enjoy heavy books. So, heavy subject matter, sure, but the heavy physical books, no. So I'm a paperback girl through and through. The next question is probably every booktuber's least favorite question. It is your favorite book. And I feel like this is a very difficult question to answer. And before starting to film this video, I sat and thought about the answer to this question for a while, because I feel like I can't give you a favorite book, because I don't have a book that's necessarily favorite of all time. I don't think I could ever give a book my favorite of all time status, unless I really incredibly enjoyed it, and also I'm still thinking about it till this day, and I have not yet really found a book like that. So this is a kind of a hard one to answer. I'm going to give you 2 examples. The one that came to mind first when I read it, it was such a novel book to me in its writing style, in the format that it was written, and the story contents, and it has stayed with me for probably 8 years now. I don't remember how old I was when I read this book, but it must be at least 8 years, if not even 10. Whenever anybody asks me what my favorite book is, this is always the first book that comes to mind because it made such an impact on me. But I haven't read it since I read it probably 8 years ago, so I don't know if I still would feel the same about it if I reread it now. So I might have to reread it, but it is Crank by Ellen Hopkins. And I loved this book so much when I read it. Oh, I see I left myself sticky notes in the front of this book to be used when I feel like it in the future. Why is there like a worm thing in my book? That's not nice to find in your book. And also, this is technically, I think, part of a series, or not necessarily, but her books are kind of all similarly written from what I've heard, but I've never been able to find any more of her books in a bookshop, which makes me very sad, because I happened upon this one by chance in the bookshop one day, and then I picked it up and I loved it so much, and then I could never find anything more by her. But that is my maybe favorite of all time, although I don't know if I would feel the same if I read it now. And then my favorite book that I've read so far this year has to be a short story collection, The Beautiful Indifference by Sarah Hall. This was the first book I read this year, and it has remained one of my favorite books I have read this year. And I think it is probably my favorite book I have read this year. I don't know if I will read a more favorite book than this year. A good indication of if I like a book is usually if I have a lot of sticky tabs in it, because I don't really take notes or put sticky tabs in many books anymore. There was a time when I did it with almost every book I read, but nowadays, if I put a sticky tab in a book, it means that it's really, really special. So there you have my two favorite books. Next question is least favorite book. And honestly, I think I'm gonna also cheat on this one, because I feel like my least favorite book would have to be one that I didn't finish, because I disliked it so much that I didn't finish it. But then also, I do have a book that I read that I didn't really like that much, but I did read the entire thing. Actually, I have a couple of those, to be honest. So the probably least favorite book that I started reading that I didn't finish was, I think, 12 Rules for Life by, I don't even remember the author's name. I've tried to erase it from my memory so much. And I honestly can tell you, I didn't even read that many pages of the book, and I just decided it wasn't for me. So 12 Rules for Life is the one that I didn't finish. And then the one that I did finish that I didn't like was Actually, I have a couple, but I'm going to have to go with Oligarchy by Scarlett Thomas. It's over there on a pile of books that I'm giving away at some point, so I'm not going to reach for it now. But it is set in a boarding school, I think, in England, and the main character is a Russian oligarch's daughter. Although she doesn't really interact with her father, she met him when he came to pick her up when something happened to her mom. I don't know if her mom died or if her mom was taken away because she was into drugs or something. I actually don't remember. But her father has posted her off to this English boarding school, and all of the girls in this boarding school have some form of eating disorder. And so much of this book is just focused on body image and eating disorders and just like teenage worries, but to such an extent that I actually think if a teenager read this book, it would be unhealthy for them to read this book. For me, I very much disliked the content of the book because of how much it focused on all of those topics. But I can obviously distance myself from that and be like, okay, well, this is clearly teenage thoughts that these girls are having, and most teenage girls do have these thoughts at some point in their life. I remember that I did as well. But I feel like if a girl who was a teenager now read that book, it might be very unhealthy for her to read that book. So that is my probably least favorite book. Anyway, moving on to a maybe lighter subject. Love triangles, yes or no? I'm neutral on love triangles, to be honest, because I feel like what people consider a love triangle isn't really a love triangle. Because my definition of what a love triangle would be is that all three people in the love triangle like each other. So meaning that it's not just two people who like the same person. It would have to be mutual all three ways. So I feel like in that sense, I've not actually really read any stories with a true love triangle, or even seen a movie like that, to be honest. It's usually one person who has two other people who like them. The most recent book you just couldn't finish. I don't think I've DNF'd a book this year so far, which is a good thing. I very almost DNF'd The Little Red Chairs by Edna O'Brien because I was really not captivated by the story, and the only reason I was finishing it was to say that I had finished it. But last year, I think the most recent book I DNF'd was honestly The 12 Rules for Life. DNF books. Yeah, okay, so my most recent book that I DNF'd was Plagues and Peoples by William H. McNeill. I completely actually forgot that I even started reading that book. A book you're currently reading. So I'm currently reading two books. I'm currently reading Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers and hitting myself in the face with it. And also Felicity by Mary Oliver, which is a collection of poetry. And so far, I'm enjoying both of them. The last book you recommended to someone. Honestly, I don't remember. It was probably Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, to be honest, because I feel like this is the most recent book that I finished and really enjoyed and have spoken to people about. The next question is, oldest book you've read by publication date. To be honest, let's go back to my book reading app. But I think it's gonna be Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Not Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I love how I said that. Far from the Madding Crowd is what I meant. First published 1874. Okay, Pride and Prejudice. I feel like Pride and Prejudice is older. First published 1813. So the oldest book I've read by publication date is Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice, the oldest book I've read by publication date. The newest book I've read by publication date. This is going to be a hard one because I honestly don't think I read that many new releases. Well, actually, Our Wives Under the Sea was published in 2022, so that might be that. When We Were Birds was published also in 2022. Okay, I'm gonna have to go and see 1st of March 2022, and this one was 16th of March 2023. Okay, but it was first published in 2022, but the version that I read was published in 2023. So it's gonna have to be again Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Then my favorite author. This is a hard one because I don't know that I've really read that many books or multiple books by the same author. But I would probably say Virginia Woolf, because I've read a couple of her books. Honestly, Sarah Hall might be one of my new favorite authors. I've only read The Beautiful Indifference, but I'm very keen to read her other book, How to Paint a Dead Man. And I think she also wrote another book, but I can't remember what it was called now. And then also Carlos Ruiz Zafón, who wrote the Shadow of the Wind series, I think it's called. And also who wrote Prince of Mist, which is the one that I have on my bookshelf. I've only read The Prince of Mist and Labyrinth of Spirits, but I really like his writing style, and obviously his books have been translated. So it is both his writing style and the translator's style and talent, I would call it, or skill, that make me love his book so much. So I think I'm gonna go with those three. Also, I'm digging myself into a hole here, but honestly, E.E. Cummings. I really enjoy his poetry. I don't understand half of it, but I do enjoy it. So I'm gonna add him to this list as well. And then the next question is buying books or borrowing books. I have recently become a much more of a buying books type of person, simply because a lot of my friends don't read, and the friends that I do have who read very different things from me. I don't enjoy the kind of books that they read. And the friend with whom I used to swap books a lot, where we would borrow from each other, now lives in the United States. So I can't do that anymore with her. So my borrowing books buddy has moved far away from me. And so I've been left to just buy all of my own books or borrow them from the bookshop, but I do buy more books than I borrow. So I'm a buying books type of person. And also I don't have a library near me that I could borrow. Well, I do technically, but they're not really that functional in South Africa, unfortunately. Then a book that you dislike that everyone else seems to love. I might have to say Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh. I don't know that everybody else loves this book, but I have heard of a lot of people who really like this book. And obviously it was made into a movie, so enough people enjoyed this book. Many of them being the actors who actually acted in the movie for this movie to be made. So I'm gonna say it was Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh. The next question is bookmarks or dog ears. I do both. I do both of them for different reasons. So in all of my books, I use a bookmark to mark where I am currently reading. But for instance, in poetry collections, if there's a specific poem that I really like, I will dog ear the page so that you can't really even see this, but I will dog ear the pages so that if I'm looking at the poetry collection at a glance from far away, once I've finished reading it and I want to show somebody one of my favorite poems, I can just flip to one of the dog-eared pages to find them quickly. And that's my method of my madness. I could probably also use sticky tabs or sticky notes to do that, but sometimes the sticky tabs fall out, and with age the glue gets worse or it will leave a mark in my book. So I would much rather just dog ear the page. I know there are many people who are very much against dog earing pages, and I'm sorry for you, but this is the system that works for me and my brain. So I do both. The next question is a book you can always reread. This question I have a hard time answering because I've honestly not reread many books in my life. I honestly don't know if I've reread any books in my life other than Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. but I don't think that I could reread that many more times before I would not enjoy rereading it anymore. I'm gonna go with Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh, because, to be honest, I had a hoot reading this book. I had such a great time. He is such a good writer. His writing is very witty, it's very funny, it's very enjoyable, and it's so ridiculous that it takes away from your brain trying to make reality out of his stories. Obviously, it's based in real time and real life, and I'm sure that some of his characters are based on real people, or there were people who were like his characters. But to me, his stories are so ridiculous, and the people, the characters, are so larger than life that it makes it really enjoyable for me to read, and I think I could reread this book many, many more times. The next question is, can you read while hearing music? The answer is yes and no. I get very easily distracted while I'm reading. So, for instance, if I'm trying to read and the radio is on, or there's somebody performing at the restaurant behind my house, then I find it very difficult to read. But if I am listening to my music with my earphones in, music that I've chosen from my phone, whether it has lyrics in it or if it's instrumental, doesn't really matter, or if it's jazz or anything like that. If it's just, only music and no other sounds, so no ambient noises of people talking or any of that kind of thing, then I can read while listening to music. But if it's music and other ambient noise, then no, I cannot. The next question is one or multiple point of views. I'm not somebody who particularly enjoys multiple point of view books, although I have read some books that have multiple points of view, probably, right? That I really enjoyed, that I found really interesting, and that really helped further the story. That said, Our Wives Under the Sea is a multiple point of view book, and I really enjoyed it. Realistically, I've just contradicted everything that I've just said by saying that I don't really know, to be honest. I think it actually more so comes down to whether the writer can execute the multiple points of view well, but as a general rule, I'm not a big fan of multiple points of view. Do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I don't think I have ever read an entire book in one sitting. I think there was one book that I did that with, but it was maybe 80 pages long, and I also was kind of hate reading this book. Not necessarily hate reading this book, but I was not enjoying the book, but I wanted to read it so that I could give it back to the friend from whom I was borrowing the book, because she really thought it was a great book and she thought it was profound. I, on the other hand, did not so much enjoy it. So I'm a multiple days and usually multiple weeks kind of reader of books. No matter how short they are, I will take a very long time to read the books that I'm reading. Sorry if the angle has changed, my battery died. So I'm back again. The next question is a book you've read because of the cover. I'm probably gonna have to say it's When We Were Birds by Ayanna Lloyd Banwo. That's the first one that comes to mind. There are many books on my bookshelf that I haven't read yet that I bought because of the cover, but I can't say that I've read them yet because I haven't. Both the title and the cover art drew me in, but I'm gonna say it was When We Were Birds. And that was the last question in this 20 questions tag. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for sticking through this very long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to answer the same questions in the comments down below, that would be awesome. I would love to read about your favorite books and your favorite authors and some of your opinions and thoughts on these bookish things. I will, as I said, list the link to the questions and to Jack's video in the description box. I might also type out the questions in the description box or in the first pinned comment for anybody who feels like playing along. Thank you again so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe, because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm slowly but surely making my way there. I will see you all again next week with another video. Bye.